Return to Us, a Fire Emblem fan fiction by Robin, Queen of Ylisse. Chapter 8, Pastime. You fumbling idiot! Sully scolded, glaring at a guilty-looking Vake, who marches off into a war and forgets their damned axe. The Vake never forgets. I just don't remember, is all, the fighter retorted as Sully glared at him. I should shove my boots so far up your— Quiet, both of you, Frederick commanded, momentarily silencing the arguing duo. Robin is thinking. At the front of the group, Robin and Crom stood where they observed a horde of the newly named Risen as they moved along the far side of a small river. Thinking about what? Vake asked, and Sully turned at him once more. Take a guess, you airheaded dolt! Sully angrily replied, and much to their surprise, Robin spun around to face them. I'm thinking of when the two of you will be quiet, Robin hissed, while both Ylisse and Crom couldn't stop themselves from chuckling. The two shepherds were quick to go silent, and Robin gave a sigh as she turned her attention back to the task at hand, ignoring the grin Crom gave her. Robin straightened herself out as she turned back towards the shepherds once more, a lively gleam alit in her eyes. She was quick to give the group a set of instructions informing everyone where they needed to be and when. Robin was mostly through with her instructions when a voice called out, interrupting her mid-sentence. Vake! All eyes turned as a figure clad in a wizard's cloak stepped out into the group. The reddish-brown-haired woman carried herself in a calculated manner, holding a tome in one hand and an axe in the other. Through prior assumption, I deduce this to be your misplaced possession, is it not? The woman glared, Vake returning a guilty smile. Oh hey Muriel, what are you up to? He laughed, running a hand nervously through his hair. You are eluding my proposed question, Muriel answered sternly, her glasses flashing in the day's light. Alright, it's Vake's. Must have dropped it or something, he admitted as the mage returned the weapon to its owner. Should you continue to displace your possessions, I shall personally amalgamate your weapon to your metacarpus, she threatened, thumbing the spine of her tome as to make a point. Vake gave a nervous chuckle, not foolish enough to challenge the mage's threat, though he wasn't entirely sure what she meant. The rest of the group had been silent as they watched the conversation, but the unworldly moan of the now approaching Risen was enough to snap everyone back into reality. Robin was quick to rally the group back into place, easily fitting the now armed Vake and newly arrived Muriel into her formation. Robin's strategy worked like a charm, and before Crom knew it, the shepherds were standing on the other side of the river without a single trace of the creatures who had barred their way. The group continued along the road, and Crom slowly sank to the back of the group where Robin walked alone, lost in thought. So, Crom began, Robin jumping slightly as she hadn't been aware of the prince's presence. How does it feel to be the royal tactician? Robin's face turned a light shade of pink as she smiled shyly. It's a little overwhelming, she admitted, turning to face Crom. Only a few days ago, I awoke in a field without a clue of whom or where I was. That reminds me, I've been meaning to thank you. Me? For what? Well, for everything you've done for me. I mean, if Frederick had his way, I'm sure I would still be lying clueless in that field. The two shared a laugh, and Crom found himself admiring the tactician's smile. So this is the fortress, Robin muttered in amazement as she gazed up at the high wall. The Longford, Crom answered as they approached the wall. It stretches the border of Ylisse and Ragnarferox. It seems we may have trouble, my lord, Frederick muttered as he pointed up to the top of the wall. The guard is mobilizing, Robin confirmed, her eyes following Frederick's. What for? Crom asked, and both shook their heads saying they hadn't a clue. Crom let out a long sigh as he stepped forward. I've never been good with negotiation, but the least I can do is try. He muttered more to himself than the others as he stepped in front of the shepherds, facing the soldiers who stood at the top of the wall. Halt! Who goes there? A woman's strong voice boomed out from the top of the fortress wall. In the name of the House of Ylisse, I seek audience with the Khans of Ragnar Ferox, Crom shouted back. A green-clad woman came into view, donned in a massive suit of armor, and Crom deduced she was likely the captain of the guard. Oh, you think you're the first Yllissians to try and cross our borders? I will have no business with the likes of you, brigand, she spat back. Crom was shocked by the woman's ferocity, and Frederick stepped forward, anger evident in his expression. Brigand? How dare you! You are in the presence of Prince Crom, the Exalt's own blood! Yes, and I'm the Queen of Valm, the woman snickered. You do realize that impersonating royalty is a capital offense. Well then, we'll settle this the Feroxy way. You claim to be the Prince of Ylisse? Prove it on the battlefield. Amaran won't like this, Crom muttered to himself before raising his voice once more. Please, good lady, if you'd only listen. I've heard quite enough. Now get out of my sight or raise your sword, the woman shouted, and Crom realized far too slowly what was happening. The soldiers at the top of the wall moved swiftly as they hurled a barrage of javelins at the shocked prince. Crom heard Robin's voice as she screamed his name, and there was a sudden flurry of movement, his mind unable to keep up as everything happened at once, and he suddenly felt himself lifted into the air. Better hold on tight, Captain. A familiar voice called out as Crom's senses gradually returned to reality. Samia. Right, Crom stammered out as he realized how far away the ground had become. You'll be alright, the woman reassured without turning around to face the prince. From the back of the Pegasus, Crom could see Robin as she looked up in order to confirm he was alright before she turned to the stunned shepherds, shouting out orders. Robin was quick to rally the group as she began to sculpt her craft. Samia, Crom repeated, this time a commanding tone in his voice. Right, she responded as she drove her mount downward. Crom drew Falkian, his eyes trained on only one person, his tactician. 1,000 apologies, Prince Crom, the knight they now knew to be Raimi exclaimed with a respectful bow. The shepherds now stood in the aftermath of the skirmish where the Feroxy defenders slowly gathered themselves. Raimi and the defenders had stood little chance against Robin, and in no time at all they had convinced the Feroxy they were who they said they were. We've been faced with brigand imposters many times of late, but no fraud could ever wage battle as you just have. I shall send word of your arrival to the capital at once, and escort you there personally. As Raimi left, Crom couldn't help but smile at the bewildered look on Robin's face as she muttered in disbelief. Her entire demeanor changed in a mere instant. In Ferox, strength speaks far louder than words, Frederick remarked as he stepped up beside the confused tactician. I don't mean to interrupt, Ylisse grumbled up from beside the three. But do you think we could get going? I'm freezing? I see no reason not to, Crom answered before he gave the order for the shepherds to follow Raimi's lead. The shepherds followed the knight to the residence of the East Khan, a large building. The interior resembled that of an armory rather than a household. A few small pieces of wooden furniture lay around a pair of large tables, and weapons of all kinds were stored on racks along the walls. Prince Crom, if you wouldn't mind waiting here while I summon the Khan? Raimi asked, and Crom answered her with a nod before she turned to leave. The Khan is away? Robin asked once the knight had left the building. Out training, I'd assume, Crom said as he gazed around the room, impressed with the inventory. The Feroxi prefer battle over politics, Frederick remarked from behind Crom. Or more accurately, battle is their politics. A warrior ruler, Robin thought, a smile creeping across her face. I wonder what he looks like. I bet he's giant. Crom snickered lightly at the thought before adding, and hairy. And burly, Robin continued, with massive arms and… Oh, am I now? A voice chuckled, cutting their joking short. Please, go on, you flatter me. The group turned in surprise as a tall blonde-haired woman stepped into the room, Raimi close behind. The woman walked with the confident posture of a leader, clad in light red and white armor with an axe strapped to her back and a sword at her hip. You're the Khan, I presume, Crom asked, his face showing signs of embarrassment. One of them. The East Khan, to be exact. My name is Flavia, and it's a privilege to meet you in person, Prince Crom. I do apologize for the troubles at the border, but I bid you welcome in Ragnar Ferox. Thank you, and I hope any misunderstandings are behind us, Crom answered, straightening himself out. I heard from Raimi that you put on quite the performance, one worthy of praise. Ah, and this must be the tactician who so easily outwitted my guards, Flavia said as she strode over to Robin, who had been standing behind Crom. Flavia seemed to take up the tactician's measure, Robin meeting her steely gaze the entire time. For a long moment, a tense silence hung over the air, until it was suddenly broken when Flavia burst into laughter, throwing an arm around the surprised tactician. You've got some guts and a sword to match. I like that in a person. Flavia laughed with a large grin on her face as Robin struggled to break free of the strong woman's grip, the shepherds chuckling as the Khan tasseled Robin's hair before letting her go. Enough of the pleasantries, I'm afraid, Flavia said as she turned back to Crom. I am well aware as to why you have come, but I'm afraid I cannot provide you with any Feroxi troops. What? Why not? Ylisse cried out, disappointment evident on her face. I lack the authority, Flavia answered plainly, receiving a number of confused glances. Forgive me for my confusion, but aren't you the Khan? Crom asked, and Flavia nodded in response. I am one of the Khans. You see, the Khans of the East and West hold a tournament every few years in order to decide who acquires total sovereignty over both kingdoms. And unfortunately, it was the West Khan who won the last tournament. So we are to receive no aid at all, Crom muttered grimly, but Flavia's eyes lit up as a smile crossed her face. Not if you're to give up so easily. As fate would have it, the next tournament is nigh, and as it happens, I am in need of some champions. You want us to act as your champions? Robin asked, and Flavia returned the tactician a grin. The captain of my guard informed me that your shepherds are quite the impressive lot, and if you'd be willing to represent the East, should you come out victorious, I will grant your allegiance as the ruling Khan. I feel you leave me with little choice, Crom answered, all eyes having turned on him. But if fighting for you is the quickest way to an allegiance, then we shall raise our steel. Oh, I like you, Crom. I do hope you survive the tournament. I hear an equally able swordsman champions the West Khan. Then he shall be defeated by Ylisse's necessity. Haha, well spoken, good prince. Please allow me to show you where you'll be spending the night. The tournament begins at noon tomorrow.